Hey guys, so I recently purchased the Morris Blazer pattern from Grainline Studio after just looking at their patterns online for so long and admiring them. I finally purchased it. I also got the Alder shirt dress, but I've been actually planning on making a blazer for a couple months, and so I just decided that it would probably be fun to document it. What this pattern calls for is a stretchy fabric. I ordered some light blue French terry from Mood. This fabric was actually a lot lighter than I expected. I can put a link to this specific fabric in the description, but I would have returned it, but I don't think you can because it's cut fabric, and then also it was really hard to find a light blue 100% cotton French terry for some reason. So I'm gonna go with this. And the color's actually grown on me quite a bit since I got it in the mail. So I've already washed this, and today I went and got some stretch fusible interfacing. The instructions say you need, if you look on Grainline Studio's blog, they actually have a really helpful sew along that you can follow for this pattern. It's probably a lot more helpful than this video, but I'm definitely following along that while I go through this. So I'm just going to open up this pattern to show you how it comes. So with typical standard patterns from other companies like McCall's or whatever, you don't get an instruction booklet. It's just these loose papers that are folded up, and it's really obnoxious, I find, because you have to like unfold all of them and then like make sure you have them in the correct order. But this is really nice that it's an actual booklet, so you don't have to worry about unfolding stuff and it getting in the way with all your pattern pieces, and it's just a mess. So I'm really happy about that. Alright, so I pressed all of the pattern pieces using my iron on the coolest setting, no steam at all, don't want them to be wet. And then I cut them out, and I also cut out all the fabric pieces and the interfacing pieces. But I wanted to say a few things about the pattern itself. So it wasn't a whole lot different from your typical pattern that you might buy, like from Butterick or McCall's, you know, the big brands. Some of the things I did notice were a little bit different. One of the main things was actually the notches. That I actually really like this. So you can see the notches are actually lines instead of a triangle. If you're familiar with most patterns, you'll know that typically you have a triangle, and what most people do is cut a little triangle out of the fabric this way, or they will cut in. And I don't really like that, because if you're cutting a triangle out, then you have to be kind of thinking about it while you're going along and cutting, and it's kind of annoying to like get your scissors in the right position to do that and everything. And then with the cutting them in, it kind of gets dangerous because you might cut past your seam allowance, which is never good. But these are just really tiny snips, which I thought was really a good way of doing that, and I might do that with all my patterns from now on, but I never even thought of that before. Alright, now my interfacing is fused to the pieces that are needed, or that need the interfacing, that is, and I'm pretty much ready to sew. But before I got started with sewing the actual garment, I wanted to do some test stitches on some scrap fabric. I was trying to figure out if the pattern maker had used a stretch stitch, like a zigzag, or serged the seams all the way through, or just use a straight stitch, and I couldn't really find anything like written explicitly in the instruction manual or in the blog post. But I actually scrolled down to look at the comments, and it looks like she did use a straight stitch and then just like serged across the seam to finish it off. I don't have a serger, and also I don't really like the way that looks. So I typically use French seams, which is what I did right here. I wanted to test out to make sure it pressed well though with this fabric. I was worried that it might be a little bit too bulky, so I also tested out just a normal seam. Don't think I'm going to do that because it looks like this fabric likes to curl in. So I'm just going to go with my standard French seam, which does take more time, but I think it's really worth it because it just looks so clean, and that really makes me happy. So I'm going to start working on my actual jacket now. So I just finished basically up to step 7 in the book. Sorry if you hear that, that's my iron making weird noises. I finished the middle seam at the back and the sides with the French seam, which I had talked about earlier. But the shoulder seams and then the neck seam, it's kind of weird. So I actually decided it would probably be better not to do the French seam. Basically this seam will be covered up with some facing later. I'm not super concerned about the shoulder seams. I'm considering just doing a zigzag or something, although it's not ideal, but so I am essentially finished, but do you see this? You see how it looks like belled out? I really hate it a lot, and this is why you should not stretch your fabric as you're sewing it on. So yeah, that's really annoying, but I guess I'm stupid. I just tried to fit it onto my arm of the sewing machine, and it fit perfectly, but I guess it stretched it a little bit. So now I gotta redo it. Yay! Alright, so as you can see, I finished my Morris blazer. The sleeves are a little bit better now that I have taken off a little bit from the seam. So I just sewed it a little bit closer so that it was a little bit smaller around my wrist. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. So some thoughts about this pattern in general that I have. I really do enjoy the look of the blazer for sure. If I do make this one in the future, I'll probably use a fabric that's a little bit thinner. Because I used a French terry, this was kind of thick and difficult to work with. And also, even though it was thick, it was still somehow like kind of see-through, so which is kind of annoying in the areas where there's facing, like in the front with the collar or the lapel. So you can kind of see where the facing ends from the outside. I mean, most people probably don't notice that, but I do because I made it, so it's something that I would notice. If I make this pattern in the future, which I mean, I probably would because it's a really cute blazer, I would probably lengthen the sleeves for one thing. I do like having full-length sleeves, and one of the reasons why I wanted to make this pattern was so I could be a little bit warmer, but this is 3/4 length, so it kind of defeats the purpose. So I would make it with a little bit longer sleeves, and I definitely would use a thinner fabric, maybe like a stretch wool or a ponte knit. I think that would be a lot easier than the French terry, although it does seem, you know, it does seem really comfortable, which is a good thing. It just was kind of annoying to work with. And so those are pretty much all of my thoughts on this pattern and sewing it. I really did enjoy sewing it. I thought the construction was really neat. If you plan to sew the same pattern as me, I would definitely recommend you go check out the Grainline Studio blog. It's really, really helpful, and they'll sort of guide you in the right direction in terms of fabric. I hope this was interesting in some way. Yeah, that's it. Bye!